Hi guys, welcome back to the Sussex Daily News version 2 on YouTube channel. Tonight we update the latest report by Women's Day magazine. Harry facing tax horror while Meghan waits for Queen's punishment. Bratty Harry and Meghan have snubbed his grandma Queen Elizabeth's annual Christmas family get-together for the second year in a row, even though at age 94 this will likely be her last holiday season. According to pals, Harry and Meghan are saying they're not ready to leave their cushy life in Montecito, California. On one hand, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex insisted, as they did a runner from the UK in January, that they were seeking a life of privacy. On the other hand, they've recently been sharing several video appearances from within their new Montecito mansion, sheltered from the ravages of the coronavirus pandemic raging just outside their walls. "We are fortunate to have this time," Meghan recently said about the COVID-19 lockdown, which has allowed the couple to be home to witness their 18-month-old son's first words and steps, while still raking in thousands from public appearances. And it seems that their somewhat tone-deaf appearances have been watched by countless people, among them two not-so-sympathetic groups: the royal family back in England and the fearsome Internal Revenue Service in the United States. Harry and Meghan are being monitored very closely, says a source. Whatever visa Harry is on, the second he's been here for 183 days, he becomes a resident for tax purposes, which means every penny he earns in California, as well as his assets back in the UK, come under the microscope with the American taxman. And the IRS will not care if he's a prince or a pauper. He pays. While it's still unconfirmed how many times Harry has returned to the UK since he and Meghan first arrived in the US in March, it appears the 36-year-old has heeded the warnings about his deadline. Staff at their rented UK bolt hole, Frogmore Cottage, have been reportedly advised to prep for his arrival in early November. It sets the stage for an epic showdown with his grandmother, the Queen, who's ensconced 800 meters away at Windsor Castle, is mightily unimpressed with his grandson's conduct ever since he stepped down as a senior royal in January. It was a tricky choice going toe-to-toe with the IRS or his granny. In the end, he chose the slightly easier one and is heading home to face the music, says a source. She's going to read him the riot act over how he's been using his dukedom in videos, urging people to vote in the U.S. election, something that is about as much a breach of royal protocol as possibly gets. The Queen wants to sit down with both of them, but at the moment it's not confirmed if Meghan will travel with Harry. Some at the palace are sniping that it'll be hard to tear her away from her brunches with celebrity friends. But she's in just as much hot water as Harry is. At least Harry knows it's probably best to rip off the Band-Aid and let the Queen get her grievances off her chest. Who knows if Harry will listen to her, though he hasn't for the past few years, ever since he fell in love with Meghan. Indeed, according to another report from Globe magazine, Prince Harry and his high-maintenance wife Meghan are about to get clobbered with a whopping megabucks tax bill if they stay in the U.S. for too much longer, experts warn. According to LA tax lawyer David Holtz, any foreigner who spends at least 183 days in the country is liable for federal and California state taxes. The renegade couple, who fled Britain after clashing with the royal family, moved from Canada to Tyler Perry's Beverly Hills mansion on May 7th, and then settled into their own $14 million Montecito compound. That means if they're still here after the first week of November, the taxman will be sending the pair, who are worth an estimated $26 million, a massive tab, experts say. Harry gets at least $600,000 from his royal allowance, plus money from Dad Charles. His prince spills a royal insider. Couple that with the business deals the pair have been making, and you've got millions in income. Indeed, the prince raked in $1 million for a speech at a JP Morgan gathering earlier in the year, and he, 36, and Meghan, 39, recently inked a $150 million Netflix deal that a source estimates could bring in up to $5 million this year. They're in the upper tax bracket and should pay about a third of their income, notes the insider. That's at least $2 million, if not more. Meanwhile, on the Daily Express, they reported Prince Harry is hoping for a major change in his post-royal fortunes next year, with Buckingham Palace likely to allow him to resume a role that has been important to the Duke for decades. But no way. Harry, a coward that insulted and deserted his country and preferred privacy, resulting in irrelevance. The military doesn't want him, neither does the UK acknowledge him anymore. According to royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, Prince Harry would much appreciate it if he was allowed to take up his military posts again. Mr. Fitzwilliams spoke to express.co.uk regarding possible amendments to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's exit terms next year. A review of the couple's negotiations with the royal family is due to take place in spring of 2021. Mr. Fitzwilliams said, "I think that he would much appreciate if his military links were restored to him. He probably hopes that they will be when they review the deal next year. No one currently holds those posts, after all, so this may be of the most likely changes to their arrangement. But I think no, absolutely not. It's quite wrong to say that the military and ex-military have lost anything whatsoever by the removal of these offices from someone who is one of the least likely military figures now. No leadership quality, no integrity, and a disdain for the UK, which is now reciprocated. If the Queen did reinstate him, the outcry would be deafening and could signal the end of the monarchy. Remember how he neglected his duties. I doubt anyone could ever trust him again with holding important military positions. He doesn't take it seriously, thinks it is merely a dress-up game. And for Meghan to say it was unnecessary to take away his positions, she doesn't understand if he is living in the U.S., married to a U.S. bride, and no longer a part of the UK or royal family, he has no right to be involved with another military other than the U.S. military. More conflicts of interest. How many military secrets has Harry already disclosed to Meghan? He chose to leave the firm in full knowledge of the consequences of that decision, and given his recent antics, I don't see how he could be returned to the fold without doing significant damage to the image of the royal family. He's made his bed, he needs to lie in it without complaining. He turned his back on the hardworking, tax-paying people of this country. He turned his back on the royal family, and he turned his back on this country. No royal role for him ever, and strip him and his wife of all titles. While she is just insisting that her husband try to regain these positions for photo opportunities in the future, nothing grander than a Netflix film with your husband in full, colorful, and traditional uniform pretending to be a leader. Now let's see what a fan mocked Harry for his life via new book, How Harry Suffered. A new book is out. It tells the tale of Harry's terrible childhood suffering, Harry's terrible Christmases, Harry's terrible birthdays, Harry's terrible playroom, Harry's terrible suffering at polo matches, Harry's terrible suffering at parties, Harry's terrible suffering in the army, Harry's terrible suffering in Great Britain, Harry's terrible suffering in Africa, Harry's terrible suffering in Canada. In short, Harry's wholesale suffering. But the last chapter is the Harry in happiness chapter, telling him of being able to walk in the shadow of a woke feminist narcissist Queen of Montecito and learn wisdom from a Z-rate suitcase girl. Harry hits Netflix for peace and a private normal life. Just what Harry and his woke wife wanted, peace and a quiet private life. You see, the book leads on to the last chapter where finally Harry can look back at all his life's suffering and the terrible family he has willfully betrayed as he followed his wife's words of woke as it reflects on the terrible suffering of Harry, the ex-prince of the wonderful country and extraordinary family he is betrayed as he made to suffer so, and his woke wife was not made to feel important enough to be able to give the queen looks of disdain and hatred on the balcony at will, which in fact she did anyway. Great woke book. And the last one added, he is a spoiled, petulant child who lacks dignity and discretion. He and his woke wife absconded to the States, hoping to make a quick buck on the high-profile Harry, owned by the accident of birth. A huge number of unflattering tales about the little runt have emerged from people whose paths have crossed. Loyalty may have kept them quiet while he was a serving member of the royal family, but since he quit, bad-mouthing all he left behind, he has sacrificed his right to that loyalty, and his nasty side has been revealed. And you, what do you think about them? Please discuss it with me in the comment section, and everyone also talk about it with him. If you so prefer my video tonight, remember to like and share it with anyone who needs it. Don't be afraid to subscribe to the Sussex Daily News channel on YouTube to get more news about the royal family. Now thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you later tonight.